Hey everyone! Welcome back to another inspiring ramble from your Shiksa Redeemed. Today's episode is really close to my heart. We're diving into a powerful article from the Times of Israel, which covers a delegation of indigenous leaders rallying in Jerusalem to affirm the historic Jewish ties to Israel. Yes, you heard that right. Indigenous leaders from across the world gathered at the Western Wall to support Israel, honoring the ancestral Jewish connection to this land. It's amazing, it's validating, and honestly, it's an antidote to a lot of the propaganda coming from so many directions today. So picture this, over 60 indigenous representatives, each bringing their own cultures, their own rich histories of resistance, and their own visual traditions. Feathered headdresses, beaded jewelry, woven shawls, standing side by side in Jerusalem, holding Israeli flags. They're making a profound statement. The Jewish people are indigenous to this land. And they're basically being like, hey, we get it. We know what it's like to have your story misrepresented, to face erasure. I think it's worth stepping back here because the history of indigenous solidarity with Jewish people is, in many ways, kind of a new layer to the struggle against anti-Semitism, I think. Indigenous people all over the world know the pain of being displaced, the loss of land and culture, and the fight for recognition. They know what it's like to be dismissed as foreign on your own land, something Jews have endured from Babylonians to Crusaders to the modern, this anti-Israel, anti-Semitic propaganda machine. And yeah, these leaders are saying, we won't let that happen to you. We see you as our siblings in the struggle. And Cherie Trotter, co-director of the Indigenous Embassy Jerusalem, put it so well. She's a Maori scholar and activist, and she calls out the myth that Jews are colonizers in their own homeland. She's challenging the Western narrative that paints Jews as oppressors and usurpers in Israel, which is not only historically inaccurate, but deeply harmful. The Indigenous Embassy's focus on education is so key here. They're fighting back against these narratives with real history and with evidence, scholarly, archaeological, and let's be honest, spiritual too. You know, the Palestinian leadership has pushed a narrative that casts Israel as this settler colonial project. But these indigenous leaders are seeing through it. People like Harvey Yesno from the Ojibwe, who compares his tribe's struggle for recognition with the fight to recognize Jewish ties to Israel. Or Nicholas Gurub Nawab from the Khoisan in South Africa, who says he's working to win over his own tribe in their support of Israel. These voices bring a much-needed balance to the global conversation. One thing that struck me was how this delegation wasn't just here for photo ops. This was a genuine spiritual pilgrimage for many of them. Some, like Fijian leader Samisi Nasika, see it as fulfilling a spiritual commitment, affirming that this land is part of a divine covenant with the Jewish people. I mean, think about that. Indigenous leaders affirming biblical ties to Israel and our indigenous right to protecting halakhic lifestyles. It's mind-blowing. And then there's the academic side. Cherie Trotter and her team aren't just about symbolism. They're building a library of knowledge, of history and context, to counter anti-Israel sentiment in academia. We all know that anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism are alive and well on college campuses, but Trotter and the IEJ are working to bring actual facts to light. Because let's face it, the Jewish right to the land isn't just spiritual or cultural, it's also academically solid. This delegation couldn't have come at a better time. With so many calling Israel an occupier, these indigenous voices are cutting through the noise and saying, actually, we know what colonialism looks like. Israel's story, isn't it? And that's incredibly powerful. It's validating. And it's a reminder that, yes, Jews are not only indigenous, but also resilient, having kept our faith, our language, and our homeland close to us through millennia of exile and struggle. So, to the Indigenous Embassy Jerusalem and all the leaders who stood up for Israel, Toda Rabba, thank you. You're fighting with us, shoulder to shoulder, with courage and compassion, and we need that today more than ever. Until next time, keep the faith, stay strong, and keep speaking truth.